In today's episode of the New Era podcast, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with the amazing Katie Orr. As the founder of KO Estates, a property sourcing company that specialises in sourcing the best investment properties for clients, Katie is truly an inspiration. What's more, she's young, successful, a female entrepreneur who also serves as the face of her brand with a phenomenal social media presence, juggling multiple roles with ease. During our conversation, we'll delve into the world of property, entrepreneurship, and explore how Katie's unique approach and expertise have helped her build her successful business. So sit back, drive on, whatever it is that you're doing, and get ready to be inspired. Without further ado, let's get into it. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. I know so where have you come from today?
Wilmslow, near Manchester, so like an hour away.
So you're not too far.
No, not too far.
Amazing. I'm just going to get straight into it, and we're going to start with some quick fire questions.
Amazing.
Okay, so Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Old school marketing or new era marketing?
New era.
Time blocking or winging it?
Oh, time blocking. I am, time blocking.
Time blocking. Work from home or in an office?
Home.
Rent or buy?
To live, rent. To build wealth, buy.
Perfect. Okay, so to get into it, I just want the audience to kind of know exactly who you are.
Yeah.
So what is the earlier story of Katie Orr?
Oh my gosh. So I grew up like very, very normal, I would say.
Yeah.
Like had two amazing parents. They always were like, literally whatever you want to do, you can do like whatever you put your mind to.
Yeah.
So I think like I carried that through my journey massively. It's just like, it's fine, like just give everything a go.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved school. I think probably school is where I learned I worked harder than most people to get where I want to be. And that was mainly like literally just by accident. So my mum always says this story where, when we were younger and you had like spelling tests.
Yeah.
Every single week we had a spelling test with like 10 spellings. I always like took the entire week to learn them.
Really?
Yeah, like literally. I like hours and hours and hours mum would spend like helping me learn these 10 spellings.
Yeah.
Then my brother comes along like 6 years later, my younger brother, and he's like learns them in half an hour, and then mum's like, actually maybe she's got an issue. Yeah. And it turns out I'm dyslexic.
Oh, bless you.
But I think actually that like instilled the fact that like I've got to work hard.
Yeah.
Like I always ended up getting the grades everyone else did, but I just had to put more work in to get there.
Yeah.
So like I've always probably like had to work harder than everyone else kind of thing.
That's such an inspirational story, that, because usually they say that people that work really, really hard in school are kind of your employees in a sense. And then the people that don't come out and become really successful entrepreneurs. But your story that you figured out that you were dyslexic, and that kind of pieces the puzzle together because it instilled hard work into you.
Yeah, literally like everyone, like my brother's like is so much naturally cleverer than me, but I just have to put in like double the work.
Yeah. So it proves it's possible though.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like, so I've probably just like taken that through because I've always just had to put more work in.
Yeah. When did you figure out you were dyslexic?
High school.
High school. So
yeah, like late high school, I'd say like 16, I had those tests.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh yeah, you are. That explains a lot.
Oh, do you think that would have helped you if you'd have found out sooner?
I don't know, because I don't even like titles.
Yeah.
You know, if someone says like, oh, you're dyslexic, you're not going to do well here. Like no one ever said that to me. So I was like, well, I need to do as well as everyone else. So and so that's probably why I put more work in.
Yeah.
Because I was like, just to try and keep up with everyone.
Yeah. And
but maybe if like, I don't know, you never really know. But like maybe if I was told, oh, you've got dyslexia, I'd be like, I would use that as an excuse. Like, oh, I've got dyslexia. There's no point trying in English. It's just not going to be for me. Yeah. Whereas, I don't know, maybe it just made me work a little bit harder.
That's really interesting, that's really interesting. So what was it that, do you think there's anything from like your younger years that made you start your business today?
So I do like think about this.
Yeah.
In terms of like property, my mum and dad both invested in property. So I was kind of like aware of it. So like weekends, I might go on a viewing with them. So I was very aware of like property and what it could do. But in my head, I was very much like, oh, you need money to get into property, like something I'll do when I'm older. So I was always aware of the industry, but just never thought of it as like something here and now.
Yeah.
So that's probably kind of influenced me in a way of like obviously knowing what's possible. Like without knowing what's possible, and you don't actually get into property. So that probably massively influenced me, just being around like other people that were in the industry.
Definitely. That's interesting. So were your parents quite entrepreneurial?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah. Well, they both had like quite corporate jobs, but then like moved into maybe a bit more
property.
Yeah.
Interesting. So with the property side of things, now I've done my research, but I'd love for you to obviously break down exactly what KO Estates is.
Yeah, so we're an investment agency.
Yeah.
And it started as me just like finding deals and then selling them on to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd find like a really great investment opportunity. So I'd negotiate the price so that it was like a really good price. I'd make sure there was a tenant in place. Like I would do everything for them and then like sell it on to someone else for a fee. Amazing. And then like they basically pay me for that service.
So how did you get into that? What was it is that what your parents kind of did, or was this just kind of
No, they had like no clue this even like existed.
Yeah.
And neither did I. Like I properly fell into it.
Yeah.
So I was looking for a house for myself to live in. It was so I never went to university. I went to, just got an apprenticeship at an insurance company in IT and started like working my way up. And like all my friends went off to university. So I think like I saw them all have like their own lives and their own space and like living outside. I was like, oh my God, I want my own space. Like that'd be so cool to own my own home. So like that was the goal, to buy a property so that I could move out. Not that it was like terrible at home, but you just want your own space. So that was like the big goal. And as I was like going on all these viewings, doing like finding out like research and stuff, I was just putting it out onto like a website and an Instagram page of just like literally like no one was watching it. Yeah. Like literally no one. But I just enjoyed doing it. And we were in lockdown, like probably had a bit more time on my hands.
Yeah.
And then it was one particular video that like got a lot of views. And then suddenly people were like texting me like, well, not texting, but like DMing me. Like, oh, could you help me find something like that? And I was like, oh my God, I could get paid for this. Yeah. And then like a bit more research later, I realized this would actually be called deal sourcing.
Okay.
So I didn't even know like what I was doing was actually deal sourcing, but yeah it was. And then, I understood like what the investors were looking for, went out and found it. And it worked both ways because a lot of the clients were like London based. So buying near them is like super expensive. Whereas I could help them find something a lot cheaper, higher yields, better returns, and then they'd pay me for that service.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Crazy.
When you set that side of the business up then, what did you do for work prior to that?
So before that, well, at the same time as that, because like this was like a side hustle for so long, I was in an insurance company doing IT. So I started as an apprentice and then started working my way up. Like ended up doing like supplier management, IT asset management. And I actually really enjoyed that. Like I think the people made it, like definitely. But probably I was definitely like pulled towards like that entrepreneurial side of thing. I think when I was in like the corporate world, I'd like look around me and people would be there for like 40 years and I'm like, do I want to be sat here for 40 years?
In the same position.
Like, So I was very like hungry to, and I think that's what appealed to me, that there is no limited, like you're uncapped in terms of your earning potential. You can grow as fast as you want to, basically. Whereas like maybe in the corporate world, every 2 years you could go for a promotion and stuff like that. Yeah. So there was definitely like elements of just being like, I'd love to just do that myself.
To go off on your own. So how did your parents react to you when you said that? Because obviously if they had corporate jobs growing up, how did they react when you said that you wanted to obviously go off on your own and work for yourself?
They saw it coming because it was like obviously done at the side. So for so long, for like, months, I was doing KO Estates on the side of my full-time job. And then it got to the point where I was like, I actually cannot, like for my mental health, for my like physical being, just can't do both anymore. And they understood that, like they saw how hard I was working. So it wasn't really like, I think my dad's probably a bit more like, oh, make sure you you're covered in terms of financial.
Yeah.
And then mum was a bit more like, you've got no responsibilities, go for it. Like,
Yeah.
and it is true, like where I was, I didn't have like any kids, nothing like that. So it was like, what was I actually risking?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing when you're young. You've got that flexibility to take as many risks as you can.
Yeah.
And if it does all go tits up, you've got a fallback. But my
Life
parents
goes
were
on.
like that. They at the time they were like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And when I started dropshipping when I was younger, I remember them thinking, "Is this illegal? Like you've got it. Like, what is going on?
What are you doing?"
But if they support you through it, and if you started prior, it
Yeah.
wasn't just like a random, I'm quitting my job.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I think some people are very like, I'm going to jump all in. And there's like I admire that so much because like if someone can just quit their job to start like fresh from the ground up, like they have like an unbelievable amount of like self-belief.
Yeah.
Whereas I was a bit more like risk averse. I was like, well, while I've got the time, let's just build it up on the side and then I can make the jump when I'm out earning what I'm currently earning. And then it was such an easier transition.
Definitely. Do you ever wish that you'd have gone to university?
No, I don't. At the time, it was like the done thing.
Yeah.
Like at school, people wouldn't ask you like, are you going or not? They'd be like, which one are you going to? And I just like, it wasn't that I was against it. And if I had a passion, like if I knew exactly what I wanted to do, I probably would have gone.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, I can't justify 50,000 just for the social as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
Like I just couldn't. So I didn't go. And I was just like, to be fair, my apprenticeship was a year and I thought, give myself a year, I can do this, work out what I want to do and then go to uni. Like I can defer a place and stuff like that. So I always kept my options open, but.
So it's living proof though that what you've achieved, you didn't need to go to uni to do. Is there a degree that could have helped?
Maybe. Yeah. Like I don't know what I don't know. But like in terms of like the business side, that may have helped. But I never knew leaving school that I was going to set up a business. So I'd have never known that was the path I was going to go down because like it just did come naturally and like fell into it.
Yeah. Do you think then, obviously your parents were, I'm guessing they did property on the side then of their jobs. Do you think it's your parents that inspired you originally to go into property? Or do you think it was that everyone was going to university and you wanted that?
Yeah, well, I didn't like even leave school thinking I'm going to get into property. Like I did just want to buy a house for myself.
Yeah.
I never thought it was going to be a career. But like being probably around my parents and I can see, oh, you can build passive income. That looks quite nice. Yeah. Like, of course, influenced me. And I was like, yeah, that would be cool to do.
Yeah.
But I just never thought it was something I could do now. Like, I always had that mindset and like belief of like, oh, you need like some money to do that. So get a job, build up my funds and then like look to do that later on.
I know quite a lot of people will listen to this and be like, well, how can you do that? So is there any sort of brief breakdown?
Yeah. So there's loads of different ways you could get into property with no money. Yeah. Like surprising how much you can either like raise money from investors.
Yeah.
But I'd say like the real skill you need is finding deals. Because if you can like find deals, whether that's on Rightmove, direct to vendor, then you can either sell them on like I did and charge a fee for it.
Yeah.
Or you can say to an investor, will you partner on this with me? I'll do the flip, I'll do the work. You just give me the money. And then you're like a dream partnership because you get the money, you do the work, they get kind of 50-50 profits. So yeah, there's honestly so many different ways.
Have you just figured this all out kind of on the journey?
Yeah, on the go. Yeah. Like I didn't know sourcing was a thing until people were like, oh my gosh, I'll pay you. Could you find me something? And I was like, oh, I could get some money here. Like I could actually like monetize what I was doing already.
Yeah.
Because I was like having this page, but I wasn't earning anything from it. Like not that it was for that at the start. I just like genuinely enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
But then that obviously helped. And then, just one thing led to another. And then it opened so many doors. So like I'll be selling deals and then someone will be like, oh, well, if you find a flip, I'd love to partner with you on it. I'm like, oh, amazing.
Yes,
amazing. And then that opened another door of like, oh, I could find a deal. I've got someone who's going to help finance it for me.
Yeah.
Create some money.
So really you've had a skill, not realised it was a skill. learnt the skill, someone wants to pay you for it, and then you've learnt so much along the way.
Yeah, oh, always learning. Like
Yeah.
still now, there's always things that are like come up and like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Or,
And I guess you'll find like new ways of doing things as well that you wouldn't have thought about.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
so when it comes to like networking, how do you feel like your network has impacted the success of the company?
Massively. Like as cringy as it sounds, network is your net worth. Like
Literally.
that's so true.
Yeah.
Because like you can just tap into someone's knowledge.
Yeah.
Rather than like you learning something yourself and taking like a year to do a project, learning what did work and what didn't work. You can go for a coffee with someone who's already done it and just be like, what do I need to know here?
Yeah. Do you think you learned that straight away, or have you made any like, I'm not going to say mistakes, but lessons that have taken you longer to learn initially?
Oh yeah, I've definitely like so many mistakes, like ups and downs all the time. Like you'll think, oh my God, I'm having a great day. Then lunchtime will hit and there's something else has happened. You're like, oh, not so good. And then you'll end up on a high. Like there's literally things go wrong like every single day.
There's so many, like, so this time last year, we did all of our outreach when it was like email marketing, DMs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until this year I started putting my face behind the brand and I started networking. And I'm like, what? I could have saved myself so much time. But I don't think...
And why didn't you?
I think it was just because we go on about the new era, but really, in a sense, networking is kind of like your old school marketing, where it was not networking in general, but going to places.
Networking events.
Yeah, like you can do everything online now. You don't need to do that. But everyone is doing it online now. So when you do network, you meet...
It's so much powerful.
People.
And I started in lockdown as well. So everything had to be virtual. It's not even like we had the option.
Yeah.
And then like you go to meet someone in life for over a coffee.
Yeah.
And like you build so much more rapport when you're in life.
Definitely. You don't have to like nurture that relationship where it's like 30 calls before they can
emails
trust you
and texts.
back and forth.
Like you can literally go for a coffee, get it out of the way.
Yeah. Honestly, we went to the NEC. It was a trade show, and one of our clients invited us down. Didn't really think much of it, but I thought there'll be loads of people to speak to. We walked in, and there was no one there doing what we were doing. There was no marketers, no nothing. Every single person was interested in what we did.
Yeah,
and I was like, why would I have just walked around trade shows some more? Like the stress. I'd have no grey hair. I haven't actually got grey hair, but like, do you know what? You just don't understand. Like, I think when you're young as well, you don't understand the power of networking until you meet someone that does it and then you learn it.
Yeah, and you see like, oh my gosh, that's like so effective. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think social media has had such a big impact on your network, or do you think generally the old school marketing's what's built it?
No, socials are still like huge because it gives you like the background. Say if you go to meet anyone, like now, even if I go to a restaurant, I'll go on their Instagram page, see what the food looks like. I think so many people do that now.
Yeah. How do you feel that has impacted the success of your business?
Oh, massively. Like still to this day, we've done no like paid ads.
So everything's been completely organic.
So, like completely organic socials. And when you're like starting out and you don't have the money to put into your business, it's like amazing, like such an amazing tool that you can like get in front of so many people's eyes. And I always say this, like in like the old days, you'd have had to have like a store on a shop front, hope people walk past. Whereas now, like we've literally just got an app that's for free. And like millions of people all over the world can see your stuff. Like that's crazy.
Literally. So with that, for example, what advice would you give to people that are, say, maybe trying to get into that space, but don't necessarily know how to because they feel like it is completely out of reach?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, like especially like estate agents that I see sometimes, I'm like, want to shake them. I'm like, you're missing out on so many leads, like because it's so powerful. But I think people put themselves off because they're like, oh, I don't want to put my face out there, or and I'm like, honestly, you can't afford not to. Like people, you got to keep up with everything that's going on, and you like massively putting yourself at a disadvantage. And I know the feeling because like at the start I was like, especially when I was like doing it as a side thing and it was like starting out, I didn't know what it was going to be. I was like hesitant to put my face on it because you're like, oh, what will people think? But like if you don't give it a go, like you'll never know.
Definitely. This is something I wanted to discuss with you, was that obviously the brand is named after you. And your face is predominantly the brand as well. So when it comes to personal branding, is that something you wanted to do from the start? Were you comfortable and confident to just go out there creating content, or?
No, like not at all. Like I wanted to keep it absolutely no one has to know, corporate, like, but then I saw the stats and I was like, okay, I can't not anymore. And I was listening to a podcast and they were like, trust me, just try it. Just try one post with your face on and then like see how it did. So I did one post and then of course it did better than everything else I was doing. So then I was like, oh, well, if I'm taking this seriously, I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
Like the stats like talk for themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, they got more engagement, you build up more trust, more like likability, everything like that. So then I was just like, okay, we'll go all in, let's do it.
May as well just keep going.
Yeah.
What year did you start putting your face out there? Or was it from quite early on?
Like Boxing Day 2019.
So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Do you think, so when it comes to Instagram and TikTok, have you had more leads come through from Instagram or TikTok?
More from Instagram, I'd say.
Yeah.
But that's probably because we've put more energy there.
So that's like where your core focus is.
Yeah. So I think we are like ramping up on TikTok.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they compare.
Definitely. Why do you think it is then that most estate agents haven't branched off into doing what you're doing?
I don't know. It's definitely starting to become a little bit more popular.
Yeah.
People stuck in their old ways.
Old school.
And just like not embracing, because it's also very, very time consuming.
Yeah.
Like it's very awkward. Like you don't like necessarily know how to do it at the start.
Yeah.
So all the first ones are literally like horrific.
Yeah.
So it is, in that sense, like you've got to get over yourself to get started. And I think that's like a massive barrier. And it's very, very easy, especially when you're running a business. And for those estate agencies that have been around for years, they have got clients already. So their numbers, like they can still say, oh, but we're still getting sales.
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh my God, you could have so more.
Do you think obviously it's old school, but it kind of links in with when people say that, if they've got more experience, they're doing better. But really, they're obviously more experienced in terms of they've been in the game for more years.
Longer, yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they've got more experience in terms of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because they could make so much more money.
Yeah.
If they focused on that.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And right at the start, I was always like, I bought everything from social media. Like you see a pair of leggings, you're like, oh, I'll have those. Like, but property, it wasn't really like that.
Yeah.
Like you'd still have to go to Rightmove if you wanted to do property shopping.
Yeah.
Whereas like everyone's hanging out on these platforms. Like why aren't people tapping into that and like selling property there?
So for example, I'm looking for a house now.
Amazing.
I am literally on Rightmove every single hour of the day. Is that something you would say is to stay on that, or where would you look for properties?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. Is it somewhere for you to live in, or is it like an investment?
I'm going to be honest, I've literally been all over. I've been renting, then I was going to get investment properties, then I was going to buy, and then I was going to be there for a year and rent it out. All over the place. I'll be a 24-year-old lost soul.
Rightmove, you can't, like everyone is on there. Yeah. Like all the agents are going to be on there. If you're looking for like a house to live in, that's going to be the place to go, because like that's where it is. But it's also like highly competitive because it's where everyone goes. Like that's where everyone is looking for a property. So be prepared to get your elbows out.
Literally. What advice would you give to, say, a younger person that's looking for a property or doesn't know whether they should rent or buy?
It will really like depend on your situation. I've actually like changed my view on this. So at the start, like I said, like I was just like, I want to buy a house. Like I want my own space. Like I just thought that was like it. Yeah. And now as I maybe just like got into this world a little bit more, I'm like less precious about owning the house that I actually live in. Yeah. Definitely want to own for like the asset side of things. Yeah. But like my next place that I'd look at, I'd quite happy to rent. Yeah. It gives you that flexibility. You can move around. So yeah, as long as like you have that property, it doesn't necessarily you have to live in it, because if you're not living in it, it gives you an opportunity to make some money out of it. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, this is how I've seen it and why I've been so confused, because I'm like, I don't need to put the down payment down to live in it, because it's not going to bring me anything back. Yeah. And I think that's what you're trying to explain that to, say, my parents. They're like, what are you talking about? Like, so if a young person or any person, it doesn't have to be young, any age, say if they were thinking about getting a property, but they didn't understand that they could make property work for them, how would you explain that?
in terms of the investment side and renting?
Yeah. So like, say if you had a deposit
Yeah.
for a property, you could either like go and spend that on a house for you to live in. And I'm not here saying like anyone's right or wrong. Like, honestly, you do you. And then you own that property. But all your money then is in a property that you're living in, and you can't really make any more money out of the money you've put in.
Yeah.
Whereas if you took that money, put it into a property, or maybe a couple, depending, like you could buy like cheaper like properties, they could generate you an income each month that would actually pay for your rent, and maybe even more than your rent, so that it would pay for your rent to live wherever you want, and you've got the flexibility of moving, leaving, kind of wherever you need to, but also maybe some additional income for life and general fun.
It's amazing. When you think about it, it's like it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
It does. It makes so much sense. What about interest rates? What are your views on the interest rates at the moment?
Oh, it's it's always like it's something we just can't get around.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be like a quick fix kind of thing. So we've just kind of got to roll with it.
Yeah.
We're seeing like a lot of clients. I think it's really affecting the new clients that are coming in who are getting their first property, because they're like, oh, well, we'll just wait a couple of weeks and see if anything changes. Like, it's making them a little bit more nervous, whereas the more experienced investors, they've been around this cycle a few times.
Yeah.
They're like, it's high now, but in a couple of years I can refinance, it'll come back down.
Yeah.
And they're very much more comfortable with it because they've just been around it more. It's like anything else. Yeah.
The experience side. So with the investors, now you're young. How old are you?
24.
24, guys. Right. So how has that affected your experience within the property space?
I don't think like age has necessarily been a bad thing. If anything, I think it like probably makes you stand out a little bit more, because typically, like, I don't know about you, but on my like property feed, it is all like older guys typically. So maybe that's helped me resonate with like a different audience to them. People find me a little bit more relatable for like the younger generation.
Yeah.
So I suppose it could be a superpower as well.
Definitely. I think with you being young, because I've experienced all sorts. Sometimes it's really positive, and especially being a female as well, it can be really positive, or it can also have its negative sides as well.
Yeah.
But how have you handled anything where you've thought, or any specific deals where you've thought, you know what, that I've not been taken serious because I'm young? Or is it
there's been like a few times where, I don't know, like people have tried to like maybe take advantage a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like my partner, Jake, like he obviously brings a very, very different dynamic.
Yeah.
So like they may have like, they'll treat me differently to the way they would treat him. And I'm just like, oh, that's funny. Like, so sometimes it's better to tag team and like take advantage of that, but it shouldn't ever happen in the first place.
Yes.
But I have seen like bits of that. Yeah.
So is he in the property space then as well?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. So did you both do similar things?
Yeah. So Jake was very much like in the development world. He had a lot of experience in terms of like new build and sales as well. So he has now come on board to help scale and grow KO as well.
Do you think then, because you're a team then, aren't you? Do you think that's really helped the relationship because you can actually work on something together?
Yeah, I like it, like, because we're both very entrepreneurial. We're both like working an awful lot. So I always feel like if we didn't work together, we'd probably never see each other because we are like working a lot, and it's nice that we do have a common interest. Sometimes we'll probably like talk too much about like work, because that's like, we'll just talk about that all the time. So it's finding that balance, but it's fun.
Right, I'm just going to move on to your team.
Amazing.
So you launched the business what year?
2020. Early 2020.
How has the team adapted since? Because obviously you launched it on your own.
Yeah, so it's like a one-man band, me doing everything, customer emails, HR, everything.
It's not hard. I don't miss that at all.
So it's definitely changed. We've grown, expanded, and we've just got like the right people in. Yeah. And it's finding the right people is so important. All like the team, I always say that they're like partners, they're not employees. Yeah. Like they are on commission only. Okay. So they can make really, really great money. Yeah. And like I encourage them, I empower them to build their own businesses, basically.
Yeah.
So it's nice that we've all got a real interest in it,
Got a
because
goal.
if they're doing well, we're doing well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my, like, I really want like a really empowering culture to like make sure everyone feels like they're not in that employee, that they've got loads of development opportunity. They can literally earn as much as they want to as well.
Definitely. How do you feel that the company culture, how important do you think the company culture is?
Massive. Yeah, huge.
Engaged. When you hired your first person, how did you delegate? Were you okay delegating, or were you like, oh my gosh?
Do you know what? I think I was like quite good. There was certain bits I was like, do you know what? I actually, there was certain bits that I was just like, it'd be quicker for me to just do this than explain it to someone else.
Yeah.
And then I was like, actually, if I just took the hour to really sit down with someone and explain it, that would free up this hour every single week. I wouldn't have to do it.
Yeah.
And like, there was certain things that I had to let go of. But then also there's certain people that have come in and has just been like, oh, I'll weight off the shoulders, because I'm like, I don't have to do that anymore. And like, they're much better at it than me. Definitely. So like, it's just helped massively.
Yeah, it's so nice when someone can come in and I'm going to say they use their initiative.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to say a certain thing, and you're like, oh my God, this is great. It's like a weight lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah, like and you're like, whoa, like, or someone comes in with different experience and they give you a whole different like way of looking at things, and you're like, wow, didn't know that.
Definitely. I think it's so important to have that around you as well, to have that, because you can be the best, but then there's so many different aspects of your business where you're just not the best and you don't even realize.
Yeah, you can't do it, literally can't do it all.
Yeah. You know, like Phoebe, our content creator, I've got the definition of fussy twat now. That is the name, because it's like, if I look at something, I start to just nitpick.
And you're like, no,
I don't need to nitpick. There's not, like, the work is fine. It's great, but because you're so used to like having that hold, you just put your little way in, don't you? Okay, so if I was to ask your team what you're like as a leader, what would they say?
Oh, I'd hope they say I'm empowering.
Yeah.
I always want them to win, like always. Fun. And
are you ever a stress head, or are you okay?
Do you know what? I am like very, very chilled.
Really?
Yeah. Like,
do you know what? I get that vibe though.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Like, to the point where people actually get annoyed with me. They're like, why are you not more annoyed about this than you should be? I'm like, I am annoyed, but like, is there any point of me like giving more energy to that right now?
Yeah.
Like, I am like, something will go wrong and I'll just be like, okay, well, let's find a solution. Like, I am very, very calm.
Yeah.
Whereas like Jake, for example, would be like screaming or
bouncing
like
off the walls.
Yeah, bouncing off the walls. And he'd be like, why aren't you more annoyed? Like, to the point where he's actually annoyed at me that I'm not annoyed.
annoyed.
And I'm like, trust me, this isn't an ideal situation, but we need to get over it quickly.
Do you know, it's a really good outlook to have.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you can either stress about something, it's not going to fix it.
Yeah, it's not. It's literally not. I'm like,
Yeah.
I could spend my energy right now going nuts at a situation that I can't change, or I can put my energy into fixing it.
Yeah.
And I'd just like choose that one.
That's a skill. I think it's a skill that a lot of people need to master. When I initially launched the business, I was the stress head.
The stress, yeah.
And then
I mean, I have my moments. I'm not perfect. But like, I am just generally in life quite chilled, I'd say.
Yeah, no, it's a really good skill to master. So you don't get overwhelmed then very often?
No, I can get overwhelmed. Okay. And there's like times where I'm just like, whoa, I need a break.
Yeah.
But I'd say like in the like, I can be quite chilled in like the heat of the moment.
How do you know when to take a break?
Like I can, do you know what my body often tells me? Like as weird as that sounds, like you just
feeling my kneecaps.
Like if I am like tired, stressed out, like my body will literally tell me. Like I almost get like lumps at the back of my head. Like that sounds really, really weird, but like stuff like that, or like my tonsils, that's like the first thing to go.
So you really feel it. Like
your body's
they're like, okay,
take a break. No, bless you. Yeah.
Do you and Jake, do you both take time off together, or do you kind of, how's your calendar?
Yeah, so we do work a lot.
Yeah.
But we're like quite flexible. Like if I need to get my nails done in the day, I get my nails done in the day. Like I just kind of take that time when I need to.
Yeah.
Like a lot of weekends I'll be doing bits, but I don't see it as work. I think
Yeah.
like when I was in a corporate job, I would always see like the clock and I'd be like, oh, 10 minutes, it's 5,
Yeah.
I can go. Whereas like now, honestly, I don't know where time goes. Like it just like blends into one. So
It's different,
it's
isn't
not
it?
like I'm always like counting down the time for like a break. I'm always just like enjoying the process.
Yeah, I think when you're working on something that you genuinely love.
Yeah. It's
You
not
don't
like
even-
work. Like I don't even like using the name work.
Yeah. It's kind of just like a hobby, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's like, this is just your life.
Yeah.
It's just your life. How do you deal then if someone says to you that, oh, you need to switch off, you need to take some time, all you do is work? Like, do you ever get that?
Yeah, like my friends are amazing because they know like this is what I love to do. Like, so yeah, there's certain times and events where I'm like, oh, I can't do that tonight, or like I've got something else on at work. But like I'm really, really lucky in terms of like my friends really understand that.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then maybe they're not your friends to start with. They've not got your best interests at heart.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. So what would your advice be to say young aspiring entrepreneurs that are, I want to do this from two angles. I want to do it kind of from the angle that they're in school now and they don't know what they want to do with themselves. And they might think about property, but in their heads they're thinking that is so far out of reach. I need to be at least 40 before I can get into that. What would your advice be to young people?
Like, don't worry about that at all. Like, honestly, there's so much money out there in the world that like people need to spend it. And like, if we can just have the skill of finding great deals, putting them together for someone, people will pay you for that. Like, money held me back for so long in terms of getting into property of, oh, well, when I have the money, that'll be fine. But honestly, like, it's funny because now I actually realize most people don't use their own money in property deals because whether you're starting out and you have no money or you have 100 grand and you want to invest in property, once you've spent that 100 grand, you're then back to square one.
Yeah.
So everyone at some point will need to understand the strategies you need to raise money to get into property with no money. Because if you've got really ambitious growth targets, like goals you want to hit, then we need to like work on that skill, understand how you can use it. Otherwise, like we're always going to run into a money problem.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm guessing that's the only way that you can really scale then. Because if you're just relying on you, it's like any business really, isn't it?
Yeah, like if you just rely on yourself, you put your money into a property, you're going to have to wait ages to build up that next deposit. Whereas like you can just tap into other sources to help you still scale and grow.
And that links in with your network again then, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To obviously meet them people.
Yeah, massively.
Amazing. So what would your advice be in terms of how to find that type of network? How would you build that network?
Like everywhere you can think of, really. Like I just say, like naturally just tell everyone what you're doing because like they will just point you in the right direction. Put yourself in those uncomfortable situations at a networking event. Social media, tell people what you're doing. LinkedIn is like such a good one because you can literally search for someone's job title, like landlords or investors. Like it's very, very simple on there. Whereas on Instagram, it's more like their personal side. So they wouldn't necessarily say, oh, I've got this much money to spend.
Do you know what? I think that's something they need to teach in schools is how to use LinkedIn.
Yes.
Like no one teaches people how to use it. And it is, I think because it is, I'm going to say it's quite a corporate platform.
Yeah.
To figure out how to use it. Like when I launched the agency, it was like a case of going on, searching for people, searching for directors of e-com brands. And it's so accessible to find all these different people that run these businesses.
Yeah.
But no one knows how to do it.
No, and no one thinks to do it either. Yeah. Whereas like you actually have access to every entrepreneur, every business owner, like in every category you could ever think of with like literally just a search.
Would you, if you were to outreach to someone, would you message them or email or would you voice note?
Voice note's so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah, like 100%. Like if you can just drop someone a voice note, it's so much more personal. Also, my spelling doesn't matter. Like nothing matters. Like it's much more like conversational and builds up that rapport a bit more quickly. I think
stands out as well because if you think, if more people start to do what you do, the amount of people that are going to be in them DMs, and you're then competing with others. But if you can send that voice note, it's just there, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely helps you to stand out, I'd say.
I think it'll go with you with your age as well. So you'll stand out more. So you're a young person, sending a voice note, it just instills confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's such a good tool that like people don't necessarily tap into enough.
Yeah. Now, I know you're only 24,
Mm-hmm.
so going back to the start isn't that long ago. But if you could go back to the start, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, like enjoy the process.
Yeah.
And like it'll all work out. Like not to put too much pressure on yourself. Like I remember at the start of feeling like sending an email out with a spelling mistake in,
Yeah.
and literally thinking it was the end of the world.
Like
Like
not
crushing, like the feeling. And like in the bigger picture of things, like half of those people probably won't read it, and out
Yeah.
of those, maybe 5 will notice the spelling mistake.
Yeah.
And I mean, at least they know it's not a robot writing it. Like
Exactly.
you've just got to take it into a little bit of context, and sometimes you can get like so engrossed and focused, and you're like, oh
On
my
the
gosh,
small
this is the
things.
end of the world. And realistically, it's really, really not.
It's not. No matter how many years you spend in something, spelling mistakes, it's not going to be the first time, won't be the last.
No, it won't. Exactly.
Everyone makes them, no matter how clever they are at spelling. Everyone
Yeah.
makes them, don't they?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I think that's a good place to finish this off.
Thank you so
But
much for having me.
You are a huge inspiration. You've honestly achieved so much.
Oh, likewise.
Thank you.
Thank you.